Because of God's moving in her, Hannah could not have peace until she prayed for a son. God, the Sovereign One, kept moving her and motivating her so that she had to pray. In her prayer, Hannah cooperated with the move of God. Witness Lee, Life Study of 1st and 2nd Samuel, pages 10 and 11. This week we continue the series titled Doing the Will of God, with responses from Brother Ron Kangas to questions related to the full-time training, the Lord's Table meeting, and the prayer of Hannah. This meeting was held during a conference in Wickliffe, Ohio, in April 2016. A link to the full audio can be found in the episode notes.
If all are available, does location of training centers matter? FTTAA or FTT, whatever. Well, okay, there is a principle, but not a legality. Okay? So let's say you're a citizen of Malaysia. There is a full-time training in Subang Jaya in Malaysia. So according to the principle brotherly established, that one should simply go to the full-time training held in their country. Okay. There's a training in Korea as there is in Yongin, near Seoul. The same thing. So the usual practice in the training centers is to encourage the prospective trainees to attend the training that's established in their country. But it's not a legality. There have been some born Americans, for whatever reason, and they had good reasons, they really had the feeling to attend FTTL. And so with fellowship, they went to FTTL. Once again, it really comes to a matter of what does God want you to do in this situation. But you should realize there's not a legality here that you have no option. There are some sisters in FTTL who are from Australia. Okay? So they're not at the training in Hamilton, New Zealand. They're in the training in London. Because there are particular situations, and we're taking care of persons in their particular situations, and we are ready to acknowledge a specific matter that makes it necessary or makes it better for someone to attend. Someone, her health, she couldn't do well in a warm climate like Southern California. Okay. Well, then there are trainings in other climate zones. So that is all we need to say about this. Although in any given country, there will not be a second training center. There's just one per country. If you set up more than one and people have preferences, that's not healthy. When the Boston facility was about to be built, we were considering how to use that. The Lord led us definitely not to have a second full-time training center in Boston. We'd have to replicate the entire training, which would be undoable. So we went in another direction. But the Lord, the Spirit, and the will of God, they take priority. So if you really have a feeling in your life with the Lord that in your situation the Lord is leading you to apply for a training in another country, don't hold back. Just bring everything into fellowship and just lay everything before the brothers and honestly share your feeling, and that will be respected, and we'll seek the Lord together on what to do. Yes.
I started having home meetings at my place on I guess a couple of months ago. And my mom was asking me, I get many other people from different denominations, and my mom was asking me about having communion, breaking bread in the home meeting. There's a few saints that come, and I was just wondering if it's something that we could fellowship on, so I can maybe have a little bit more clear understanding. I mean, I've read the footnote in Acts 2:42 where it says that it falls along the same line as prayer and breaking bread, and they did meet from home to home. So I was just wondering if it's something that...
Okay. But the context of Acts 2 is the church in Jerusalem. So the Lord's table, partaking of the Lord's table, is part of an established church life, meeting on the ground of the oneness of the body of Christ. And those partaking of the table recognize this is the significance of the bread on the table. There is one body, and we are meeting on the basis of the oneness of the body as the church in this city. And that alone gives us the ground to have a Lord's table meeting. Now, in a very large church with maybe dozens of group meetings or home meetings, the Lord may lead the brothers to have the Lord's table meeting in homes. But everyone attending the Lord's table meeting in a home has the consciousness that we are the church here in Jerusalem. And we are in the oneness of the body. This is categorically different from just being with Christians in a home and having fellowship. If that meeting is not a meeting of the church under the oversight of the church, you do not have the ground to have the Lord's table meeting. Paul made this very clear in 1 Corinthians. We have to discern the Lord's body. So let's say I was invited to attend a denominational meeting, either to speak there or just to be there, and I was inclined to go. And they had what they call communion. I could not partake of that. I would not make an issue. I would not stand up and say anything. I could not partake of that because that is a denomination with a human name. That bread is the bread of that denomination. It does not signify the unique oneness of the body of Christ. Whenever we touch the Lord's table, we are touching something closely related to God's governmental administration. We should never do it lightly. It's not for our convenience. Rather, if you're meeting in a home and different believers are there from different backgrounds, it is better not to make the church an issue. We do not proselytize, right? We do not try to convince others to leave where they are and meet with us. You want to have fellowship? We have fellowship. But to take the step of breaking bread with them, having the Lord's table with them, would violate God's government in this matter. And to violate God's government is much more serious than sinning in a personal way. So we have to be very careful with this. We can't just do it out of a good heart. We're here, we all love the Lord. You need to have the ground and the basis for that. And that is the church life, meeting on the ground of the oneness of the body of Christ, under the proper headship represented through the brothers. Then in peace, we can recognize this bread signifies the physical body of Jesus, the mystical body of Christ. I partake of this as a member of the body in the oneness of the body. Then we can proceed. Okay? What is the difference between the prayer of natural fire, I'll explain this, of Nadab and Abihu, and the prayer of the Hannah ministry? Seemingly a natural need, but aligned with God's need for His will and the fulfilling of His purpose. Okay. What the question is referring to is that when the priesthood began to function in the Old Testament, fire descended from God upon the altar of the burnt offering. And that fire, and only that fire, was to be used to burn incense. Because that fire represents God Himself as the source and as the energy. 2 sons of Aaron the priest had their censers, and they used a different fire to burn the incense. And this is in the Old Testament. Then they immediately died because they violated God's principle. So in the spiritual understanding, we use the designation strange fire to refer to an energy, an enthusiasm, a force which is not from God, but from the power of our soul. So the questioner is asking, what is the difference and how do we discern the difference between Nadab and Abihu offering strange fire, that is someone praying, energized by the power of the natural life, and the prayer of the Hannah ministry? Now, not everyone knows about Hannah and the Hannah ministry. This is now in 1 Samuel. And Samuel is one of 2 wives. That's just a fact. Don't ask me how we got that way. It's just a fact. One was having children, one after another. Hannah was not having any. Now, I'm not trying to be facetious, but I've learned something about sisters through the decades. Okay? They're all women. What I mean is, they're still human beings. They're human beings. You don't become this kind of strange mystical being because you're a sister. The brothers are men. The sisters are women. And Hannah's a woman, and she wants to be a mother. There is no indication that she's praying with the power of her soul. Simply because you are praying from a need doesn't mean you are praying with strange fire. There's a time to pray according to our need, to make our request known to God. In this kind of prayer, we should be able to ask Him anything that's on our heart. So when my daughter was little, she's just a little girl, and she comes to her dad and says, "Daddy, may I have a pony?" I don't say to her, "Why do you ask for a pony? Why don't you care for the desire of my heart, for the purpose for which I'm living?" I would kill her. I would say, "Becky, we live in the city. We're not allowed to ask to have a pony. How about a hamster?" "Yeah, a hamster." Well, God is somewhat like that. You should be able to bring to Him anything that matters to you when you're having this kind of prayer. So Hannah was praying because she wanted a son. There's no indicator that she was bombarding the throne of God with soul power. She was praying out of her heart. Now, the ministry, Hannah's ministry of prayer, took place. See, this is mysterious, but you might as well know what the text is saying. She's praying for a child, and God closes her womb. So the more she prays, the more God makes it impossible for her prayer to be answered. But because the Lord needed her to pray, she couldn't stop praying, and God couldn't answer until she made a leap in her prayer. And she connected her need, her desire, with God's need. This was a time of degradation under the judges. So Hannah had a breakthrough when she said, Lord, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you, and he will be a Nazirite from the day of his birth. At that point, Hannah's need and desire to be a mom and to have a son was connected to God's need and desire to have a particular person who could turn the age to the kingship and bring in the kingdom. That was Samuel. Now sometimes, because the Lord has so few on the earth who really love Him, who really care for the desire of His heart, so few that are really open to Him and consecrated to Him, there are times when it seems He makes their life difficult. They come to Him with a human need. To get married, to have a job, to be healed, to have a child. And there's no answer. It seems there's no God. At least He's hiding and He's silent and He's inactive. But neither can you stop praying. Then there's this kind of breakthrough in the prayer. Lord, if you give me a brother for a husband that I'm longing for, I ask you for a God-man who is governed by your vision, then our marriage will be consecrated to you for our whole life. Now, the need is linked to God's move and God's interest. So there is a difference between using the power of your soul, your enthusiasm, your excitement, your zeal, your energy as the source of your prayer. That's the strange fire. This is categorically different, I say again, from praying out of a longing in you. You want to be married. You need a job. You want to be well again. You want to have a child. You want your son to be recovered. We shouldn't hold these things back. We shouldn't feel that because we're praying from human need, it's strange fire. But if you pay attention to your inner being, if you have life and peace as you're praying, you're not torn up inside because you've damaged your spirit by using your soul power, you will realize that I'm not offering strange fire. Strange fire, when it comes down to it, is just natural zeal, natural enthusiasm. And we have seen this. We wouldn't hide our history from you. This is what happened in Berkeley in 1977 in a conference full of strange fire, full of all kinds of wildness in the meetings. And that should be a lesson from our history. We don't need to repeat that kind of stir up people emotionally, get them excited. We enter into an attitude of a movement, then it doesn't work out, and hearts are broken. As long as I am able to do my part in overseeing the situation among the churches. I will never allow another movement to come in and damage young lives. This happened in 77 and 78. So we're not afraid of zeal. It was said of the Lord, the zeal for God's house consumed him. We're not afraid of spiritual power, but we will not give any ground to the power of the soul, to the power of the natural life. At the same time, we should be free to pray to our God and Father whatever's on our heart. If you want a pony, ask Him for a pony, and be content if He gives you a hamster.
Thank you for joining us today. To hear the complete recording and other messages, please visit livingtohim.com. If you would like to receive regular updates from us, please subscribe to this podcast and join our mailing list on our website. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where our handle is @livingtohim.